Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Investigate Season 2, Episode 2 by Property Access. Today's theme is what is the legal framework for property investments in Vietnam? We invite two lawyers from Vietnam for the discussion tonight. I'm Hiroki Kazato from Tokyo, Japan as a host tonight, and Sheila Bailon from Singapore as a co-host here. Hello, Sheila.
Hello, よろしくお願いいたします。皆様、こんばんは。Sheila です。いつもお世話になってます。本日ご参加いただいてどうもありがとうございます。So tonight, I'm so excited to discuss about my former home, Vietnam. I spent so much time here. So anyways, would you like to, I will start with the Vietnam, yeah? Okay. Yeah. So Vietnam is quite important to me because I spent so much time on this place and I would like to discuss it with you and share these things with you. Okay, so we will discuss about the Vietnam, Hanoi, and Ho Chi Minh residential and office market. So to date, you will see that this was in 2018, okay? But you will see that Vietnam is still in a low real estate transparency index from JLL, but in recent studies by JLL as well, and this is in 2020, they declared that Vietnam has strong presence in ranking with both Hanoi, ranked number 3, and Ho Chi Minh City, ranked number 8 in the City Momentum Index Top 10. Ho Chi Minh is generally viewed as the more business-friendly destination, attracting more overseas investment along with higher corporate presence. Whereas Hanoi has lagged commercially, but it has a city that is swiftly evolving. So that is the transparency index right now. Okay, who can own properties in Vietnam? Okay. In July 2015, the Vietnamese government introduced Vietnam law on residential housing, which made it remarkably easier for foreigners to buy. Technically, foreigners can buy as many condominium units as they want, as foreigners do not have any restriction in buying the number of properties they can buy. But foreigners cannot still buy land, but they can buy it through the land use rights, okay? And the land use right is also depend on the license that is given to them. It may be into a company or it could be a certificate. Okay, and please note that the foreign ownership has a cap, and the cap is restricted only for 30%. And there is also restriction in selling to secondary market. The foreigner can only buy branded condo and not local flats unless they're married to Vietnamese. Next, please. Thank you. There is 2 books that you have to look at when you're buying properties in Vietnam. One is Red Book and one is Pink Book. Normally, we don't deal with Red Book because Red Book deals with land. And Pink Book is normally the one that's common for foreigners and primarily to invest condominium projects. And it's considered the strongest proof of ownership. It's strong with your Pink Book and the sales purchasing agreement. This Pink Book declares that you can own your house for residential and other purposes. Demolish, maintain, renovate, or rebuild your house. And also you can do transaction when selling and mortgaging and leasing the property. Okay, next please. All right, so these are the steps. Normally, you have, just like buying in other countries, define your goals. What do you want? Do you want to do it for investment? Do you want to do it for your retirement? It's all up to you, but you have to look at that one. And when you do your investment, you have to look at your what kind of capital appreciation, investment yield that you need to know. So those are basics when you want to do for investment. But most common pitfall is, sometimes we just go straight and then talk to the marketing and sales people without doing much research. And law, you have to seek for advice from a lawyer on how to invest in any other countries anyway, because you have to make sure that you also abide by the law. So in Vietnam, we have this rumor phase. The rumor phase is where when we can find out where's the location, what's the project type, what kind of price range. And this is normally based on my experience. This is a good one because this is where you can get further discounts, and this is where you can do your negotiations, and this is where you can choose the kind of units that you want. So once you already have that, you have to pay a refundable booking fee. And then this booking fee will only be non-refundable once you sign a deposit agreement. And then again, the SPA. Note that when you pay the SPA, it will take you 3 to 6 months because in Vietnam, just like Malaysia, they have to finish the foundation first before you can sign the SPA. The foundation is normally the basement. So more or less, it's around 3 to 6 months. So these are the payment terms that is normally that you have to pay. It's 102% in total. The 2% is for the maintenance cost. Okay. Transferring money in Vietnam. Compared to 10 years ago, it's much better right now because there are many operational international banks. It's not just HSBC, there's ANZ, there's Standard Chartered Bank. And if you have the right documentation, you can open a local bank at the banks. And you can also transfer money to the seller, to the developers themselves. For mortgages, although it's difficult to get mortgage, we have to say that it's not impossible. Okay, so if you have like a relationship with your bank overseas, and then there's a bank in Vietnam such as HSBC or OCB, then you can cover a loan up to 80%. It depends on your relationship with your bank. And then you can have a loan period for at least 15 years. But then again, collateral is also a must. Okay, thank you. So these are the taxes that we have for primary market. This is normally the same taxes in the Philippines, if not, similar with Malaysia, with Thailand. So almost similar as well. Okay. Now we're going to talk about property. Now we're going to talk about the market. Okay. So first we are going to discuss about Hanoi. And after that, we will discuss Ho Chi Minh. So we will discuss about Hanoi for office forecast, and then residential, and then Ho Chi Minh office, and then Ho Chi Minh residential. So although Hanoi office market has yet to suffer much from the COVID-19, it is likely to do in upcoming periods due to overall economic slowdown. In tandem with lower economic growth for Vietnam and globally, the demand may slightly be weaker than previously predicted. The impact will likely be more obvious in grade B than grade A, as the competition in grade B is more intense with larger supply and tenants in sub-market. Also tend to be more sensitive to economic swing than grade A. Okay, thank you. And globally, an estimated 20,000 to 30,000 units are set to be officially launched in 2020. It should be noted that the pipeline is subject to great uncertainty depending on how long the outbreak will last. The township model with mid-end projects will continue to be the key contributor factor, and that is for the condominium. So we are going to discuss about the Ho Chi Minh this time for office. Most of the new supply forecasts to enter the market in 2020 are already under fitting out stage or nearly completed. Hence, there will be no adjustment before the epidemic. In 2020, the total supply for grade A and B office market will reach to 1.5 million square meters. As the global economy remains uncertain, especially with the impact of COVID-19, tenants' new setup and expansion plan will be affected in the near term. Thank you. Amid the COVID-19 outbreak, a number of projects were reported to delay their construction. Progress and launching plan resulting in fewer than previously expected units to be launched. The online supply is subject to great uncertainty depending on how long the outbreak would last. So it's all dependent. Thank you so much. So that is the forecast. That is the summary for our for our office and for our residential for Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh.
Thank you.
Thank you. So our guest for tonight, would you like to do it in a Japanese, Kazato-san?
Yes. 本日2人のゲストをお呼びしております。冒頭でもお伝えしました通り、弁護士でいらっしゃいます。1人目がですね、タンさんです。ベトナムで18年以上の実務経験を持つ弁護士でいらっしゃいます。でも1名がポールさんです。米国籍をお持ちのポールさん、こちらも弁護士されておりまして、不動産に関する弁護士業務を主として行っております。Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Paul. Hello, Mr. Tang. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I know that it's now evening in Japan. Here in Hanoi, we are like 6 p.m. plus or least. Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk about properties law in Vietnam. My colleague, Paul Boronskis, with me, myself, would be happy to share with you what we know about the development of the properties laws in Vietnam during the last few years, especially on the residential aspect. We'll also be happy to share with you some practical insight that we have gained from our practice and also as a person residing in Vietnam. And we hope that we will bring some useful information to you during this webinar. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I think, Kazato-san, I think we're lucky to have two gentlemen here. Mr. Tang is obviously from Vietnam, and Paul is doing business in Southeast Asia, and but he's also from the United States. So anyway, Mr. Tang, Paul, I will ask you the same question later on. I just want to ask, so do you think it's the best time to invest in Vietnam right now, considering what do you think, being in the legal being lawyers, do you think the legal aspect of investing in Vietnam is a part to some other Southeast Asian countries as well?
Yes. Yeah, so thank you. I think my answer is also related very much to my background. I'm a Vietnamese lawyer, have been practicing laws in Vietnam for 10 years. I come from DFDL law firm, a regional law firm in Southeast Asia. So during the last few years, we have seen the big development in the business properties market in Vietnam and also neighboring countries. In Vietnam, what we have seen is that the price of the properties has been always growing. Compared to the last 10 years ago, I could say that the price of a property has been something like double, almost double. Even in certain areas, there has been a rocket increase in the price of properties. Giving you an example about Da Nang cities, beach cities in the middle of Vietnam. Over there, most of the land areas in the nearby the beach has increased in terms of the price almost 5-6 times now during the last 10 years. So, but I think I would serve it from commercial advice for other colleges. But from legal perspective, the government in Vietnam has also made a lot of effort in improving the legal frameworks for properties investment in Vietnam. We have the for the first time we have the law on housings many years ago, but the latest laws was dated about 5 years ago in 2015. Since then, the government has also issued a lot of guidance to help to help improving the development in this regard, particularly for foreigners or foreign invested companies buying properties in Vietnam. The legal framework in Vietnam for now has become much clearer than in the past. We have a law which clearly allow foreigners to purchase properties in Vietnam. And the previous speaker already briefed you on what you can do in terms of buying properties in Vietnam. For the time being, looking at it from a bigger perspective, the government of Vietnam is still in the process of improving a lot of the laws and regulations which would support the properties development in Vietnam. The most vivid example is that at this time of the year, in this month, right today, the National Assembly of Vietnam is meeting to review a lot of new laws, especially the two biggest new laws of Vietnam is the law on investment and the law on enterprises. The law on investment the purpose of reviewing these two laws and the plan is to pass these two new laws. The main objective is to simplify the process for foreign investment in Vietnam. All is about simplifying, making it easier for foreign investor coming to Vietnam, investing in Vietnam, and hopefully with these new law, it will make it easier and less time consuming for foreign investor coming to Vietnam, investing in properties in Vietnam. Okay. The other thing I could add is that very recently Vietnam signed up certain important treaties. You may be aware of that is the CPTPP, the one which came out from TPP Trans-Pacific Agreement, which would somehow create a much more transparent playground for all the parties to this treaty. The other examples is that recently Vietnam also signed up a European Vietnam Free Trade Agreement, which should also lay down a very good ground for foreign investment in Vietnam, foreign investment in general, and foreign investment in the real estate industry. So with all these kind of things, and especially with the success of the Vietnamese government in the way they control the COVID spreading in Vietnam, I'm very confident that it's now a very good time, looking for a foreign investor to come to Vietnam to look for opportunities in general and to find opportunity in the real estate market in Vietnam. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Tan, I just want to follow up in some of your questions here. Okay, because when I was there more than 10 years ago, I do have issues on. We're doing developments as well then, and I have problems in terms of transparency in getting all the documents before. This is my own experience. As a lawyer, and I understand that you also have some Japanese or foreign clients as well. If you could just give one or two examples on, because you mentioned that there's a lot of investment that they're trying to make it easy for foreigners. What are the glaring, at least one or two problems right now that that your client has been experiencing and had experienced that this law of the law that the government is trying to address? If you could just give one or two experience based on your own experience as well, that you are trying to that some of the government official is launching to make it easy for foreign investors to come in.
Thank you. That's very interesting questions. And I'm sure my colleague Paul will add to my answers also. But for now, I think in response to your question, then we may look at it from two different perspectives. The first perspective is for a foreign investor who want to develop a properties project in Vietnam, either residential, commercial, beach resort, or whatever. The major issues in this regard is about the process for an investor, not only foreign investor, but also Vietnamese investor, to secure all the necessary license for a project. Then in our calculations, there should be at least 5-6 steps for investor to obtain all the licenses to develop a property project in Vietnam. And in the calculation, the latest calculation by the Vietnam Properties Association, a developer will need something like 245 days in total to complete the whole process, to obtain the licenses. But in practice, what I could say is that the process could even take longer than that, because when we talk about 245 days, it means that the process will be smooth. It means that you as an investor, when you apply for the licenses, then you are able to satisfy all the conditions, which are laid down by the Vietnamese legislation and also the authority. And I couldn't deny that there are also certain bureaucracies in the way that the authorities treat the applications. But what I also have heard and what I have also witnessed is that there have been a lot of discussions about this, in a way that how we're gonna improve this process, how we're gonna shorten this process, so that it will speed up the process for the investor to develop a project. That also means that to enable the investor to save costs in this regard, because we all know that the longer the process is, the more costly for investors. So I think that's a major issue for a real estate developer in Vietnam, and that is not only for the foreign investor, as I say, it's also the problem for local investor. The second perspective, if we look at, is if you are the individuals buying properties in Vietnam. Say if you are interested in buying an apartment or even a landed property, then it's all about the title document that you can obtain. We know that only for each cities, only certain project can sell property to foreign investor.
So city, sorry, you mean only certain city or certain projects?
Only certain project. I mean, for example, for Hanoi or for Ho Chi Minh City, the constructions department of such cities will publish a list of real estate project that can sell properties to foreign buyers. Okay. until now, Hanoi has published that list, but unfortunately, Ho Chi Minh City has not yet done so, and there has been a lot of criticisms to the construction departments of Ho Chi Minh City on their delay in issuing the list of such projects. And this also, but what I know, from internal resource is that there has not been an agreement between different departments inside Ho Chi Minh City, and that's the reason why they cannot, issue the list of the project that can sell property to foreign buyers. And recently, the Prime Minister of Vietnam, requested that Ho Chi Minh City People's Committee need to resolve this issue as one of the priorities for priority. So I hope that very soon the construction department of Ho Chi Minh City will issue that list, so it will become clear to everybody that which project foreign buyer can buy. And that would also help to speed up the process for the people's committees of Ho Chi Minh City to issue red book or title document to buyers. Actually, I helped some foreign buyers in the past to buy properties in Vietnam. They got nice penthouse, and since they use us, from very beginning, so they were quite secure in terms of the contract, in terms of contractor protections. But unfortunately, it's still an issue for some of our clients that they are still waiting for the red book. We are confident that the red book will issue either sooner or later or very soon. But this still somehow an issue to that the foreign buyers interest in buying properties in Vietnam should take into consideration. Thank you.
But a follow up again for that, Mr. Tang. I just want to check because there is a foreign. You mentioned that there's a list for foreign buyers and for local buyers. I would assume that the local buyer will be like the housing for the locals, and then the foreign buyer will be like the branded ones. And when I was in Vietnam, we were developing projects that's also for luxury Vietnamese, and majority of my investors are also Vietnamese. If you have the list of people that can buy foreign and then local, will that affect the price?
I think to some extent, I would say yes. But how much it would affect the price, that I cannot comment. But I think especially for Ho Chi Minh City, I think for the last 2 years, the price of the properties have increased by certain percentage, thanks to the general development of the city, and also I think people know that all these issues will be resolved either sooner or later.
They
will want to come one step ahead, before the price is already too high.
Yeah, I would assume that the ownership will also be affected on foreign and also by local, with local leasehold and also freehold. I would assume that will be one of the factors. That's just my assumption. I'm not so sure how true is that, because at some point the National Defense, right, Ministry of National, the two departments has to say whether it's a leasehold or a freehold. I would assume. I'm not so sure, but I could do some research on that. So Paul, going to you. Thank you, Mr. Tang. Paul, going to you. So you're a foreigner, you're a lawyer, you've been doing business in Southeast Asia, you're familiar with Vietnam, you're familiar with Thailand. As a lawyer, as a foreigner, will you invest in Vietnam? Am I putting you on the spot?
So I think Vietnam is actually the country that has done the most out of all Southeast Asian countries, with maybe the exception of Singapore, to draft the laws in a way that allows for an easier and wider range of activities for foreigners to invest in. So Vietnam is quite different from a lot of its neighbors because it does allow for foreign investment in a lot of different industries. There are, of course, certain restrictions for certain types of industries, real estate being one of them in terms of the way that you can invest in the country, and financing for your project is somewhat limited relative to other jurisdictions. But, if you want to do a straight comparison between Vietnam and Thailand when it comes to residential investment, the answer is you can, as a foreign investor, invest in and build residential property in Vietnam, subject to, of course, getting all of your licenses and complying with the minimum investment criteria. But in Thailand, for instance, that's not possible. It's not an area where foreign investors are permitted to, on their own, invest in that sector. So for foreign investors in Thailand investing in residential real estate, and we've assisted Japanese clients in Thailand on this specific issue, which is essentially taking a minority stake for a joint venture project for a residential development in Bangkok. They would not be able to, even under the Board of Investment Procedures in Thailand, to be able to invest as an independent investor. So a Japanese company couldn't just establish a wholly Japanese-owned entity in Thailand to conduct a residential real estate development. Whereas in Vietnam, that is possible. It's
Yes.
complicated to get your permissions, but it's definitely something that's available for you to do, subject to your compliance with the requirements in Vietnam, particularly with respect to your ability to invest in that type of project and meet the minimum investment criteria.
Yeah. So we are discussing the developer investing or putting a project into a company. What about just let's say a normal person going to a developer's trading floor and decided to buy a property? It's a branded property. It's direct from the developer. So far, how is honestly, I believe it's quite straightforward. If I were like a foreign investor and I'd like to buy property in Vietnam, let's say it's been growing, it's opportunistic, it's relatively comparable to prices it's much cheaper than Singapore. It's comparable to prices of Malaysia. Well, Thailand is still more expensive. So between, and it's growing, and the capital appreciation will go up. So I will go there. So normally, what are the, what are the things that I have to look at other than what I've said earlier? What are the pitfalls other than the, I'll be upfront with you. I heard some feedback that the leasehold, when they bought it, it's freehold, and then later on it will be going to be they will be informing them it's a freehold leasehold. So from freehold to leasehold, is that legal? Oh, we just lost Paul. Hello, Paul. Are you there?
I can answer these questions.
Yeah. Sumima said, Toysin Loy, I think Hiroki-san would like to translate.
Okay.
sorry. I'll do the question later. Sorry. Go ahead, Kazami-san.
今ですね、お話しあったの、ちょっと長いセンテンスだったので、完全に訳せないんですけど、今ですね、ベトナムのその法規制について、個人の不動産の所有に関しての話になってきました。で、いくつかですね、いろんな規制があって、他の国との違いもあるんですけれども、ベトナムの中ではですね、いろいろちょっと複雑な規制もあったりするので、なかなかこの投資が難しい側面があるということで、で、シーラからの質問にあったのはですね、フリーホールドとサブリースですね。これは日本のビューアーの皆さんから事前にご質問いただいたところですけれども、いくつかのですね、その、所有権の建物が実際に引き渡しを受けるときにリースホールドになるというようなケースというか、そういう要求が来ていると いうことに関して、法律的な観点でどうかということですね。OK。
Yes, sorry. Okay, so I don't know what happened to Paul. Paul left, walked out on us.
I think you have internet connections issue.
Okay, okay,
So,
all right.
I think,
going back to my question.
Yeah, so I think we should not keep the audience waiting.
Yes.
So I take full permission to respond to these questions.
Yes.
I think very short answer, very brief answers is that before you buy as a foreigners, before you buy properties in Vietnam, you need to have a good due diligence on what you are buying. I mean, notably the project that you're buying, you need to check into various issues to make sure that that is a project that that is a property that you really want to buy. Because I think in Vietnam the legal scheme, the legal scheme is also very diverse. It has a lot of varieties. Your questions about when you buy is a freehold, and then turn out later on it is like 50 years or 70 years.
70 years,
I think if you know that for Vietnamese local, then they can own apartments, forever. I mean, it's a freehold by nature. For foreigners, you may only own an apartment in Vietnam for 50 years and renewable. But apart from that, there's also certain limitations or restrictions in terms of the use terms and the land use terms of the project when the developers apply for that project, because not all the projects are limited in terms of the land use term. So when you buy a property, you need to ask the developer for a copy of all the licenses, the land use right certificate, so that you may verify, what is this project about? What is there any restrictions in terms of land use right, in terms of the different thing that you have to take into account. Normally, a lawyer will help you with this work, because we know what we need to look at.
Yes.
Especially when if you heard recently about the issue with condotels in Vietnam. A lot for a certain project, and it happened in Vietnam that some people, they bought condotels in Vietnam with some commitment from the developer that they will be able to generate a certain guarantee revenue.
Yield. Yeah.
Okay.
GRR. Yeah.
Yeah, but it recently happened that some developer, they cannot keep that commitment.
Yeah, sure.
It's just they are default on the contract. So that means that between buying a residential apartment and a condotel, that make a big difference, depending on what you are aiming at when you buy properties. But I think Paul is back, so I would not be long. But in my view, it's important that to have like a good due diligence on what you buy.
Sure, that's why you're here. That's why we're introducing you to our market.
Thank you.
Anyway, Paul. No, so the question is, Sumimasen. Sorry, Toisinlai. Kazato-san, would you like to translate? You want to translate that now, or you want to wait for Paul?
I'll write it on. Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, Paul.
Yeah.
Paul, what's your take for other than having your due diligence? What's your take? And I have a follow-up question after this. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sure. And sorry for the technical difficulties. I think our best efforts to stay connected are sometimes thwarted. But in terms of it, and I think I may have missed the first question to Tang. Can you just go back and give me the full question?
I just asked because we on the first part we have been talking about the general of developers of investing in real estate development. Of course, we also need due diligence. We also need to work on other aspects, and we also have to have deep pockets because we may be able to wait for a longer time. So that's a summary for the first institutional developers. So now we're moving towards the investors, individual investors, who will just go to the trading floor and buy properties. And there are some of Japanese, I understand, and they sent this question to us that they were promised a freehold, and then later on the developer will say, oh, sorry, it's not freehold anymore. It's going to be it's now leasehold. Are there any ways to protect them?
So other than due diligence, I think it's important as a first step for a foreign investor to recognize that in general, and it's subject to very specific limitations, a foreign investor is not going to be able to get an allocation of land for their personal use, for instance, or for business use. The land in Vietnam is considered to belong to the people, and therefore allocations of land are limited to Vietnamese citizens, cases for overseas Vietnamese, and also foreign nationals who may be married to a Vietnamese or overseas Vietnamese may be able to get a allocation of land, in which case it's a stable use of the land without a definite period. But as a foreign investor, generally, you're looking at a maximum of 50 to 70 years of use rights. With residential particular usage, it's 50 years. Unless there's some special grant to that foreign investor. So I think you have to come into the market realizing what it is that you're investing in and what your expectations are for that investment. So I hear a lot of people asking me about this 50-year lease term, which is granted, and whether or not it's renewable. And the key question is, I think, from a foreign investor perspective, is whether or not you're going to get your return on investment within that 50-year term, and planning for the term to be 50 years rather than planning for it to be an indefinite investment opportunity. Because even as of right now, if I buy a condominium, it may be a great investment, because if I buy the condominium unit now and I rent it out to a renter in Ho Chi Minh City, I should be able to get my return on investment before that 50-year term comes up. But I can't base my investment on the assumption that I would be granted another 50-year term at the end of that period. While the law allows for the term to be renewed for usage, it's not a guarantee, and it's subject to agreement with the authorities. And I think we haven't really seen it. And Tong, you can step in and fill in the blanks here. But I don't think we've ever seen the condo units being renewed as of yet, because it's just too early. The condominium regulations are not that old. And so it's impossible for us to say right now what the investment environment will look like in 50 years or 30 years when these first condominium units start to expire in terms of their initial lease. So I think as a matter of planning and understanding for investors, it's really important to understand what it is that you're investing in, and to not be tricked into believing that you're getting something that you're not.
Okay, I think it's a 101.
Yeah, I think Paul just mentioned that is something that I can maybe add on to that. But I think as a Vietnamese, being here for all of my life, I think I have different thought on this, actually. And I received the same inquiry from our clients, not only in the area of property purchase, but also for foreign investment in general. Because you know that for foreign investment in Vietnam, foreign investor may only lease land in Vietnam for 50 years, and in special cases can be up to 70 years. And in principle, the land use term would be renewable upon expiry. So in many cases, I receive a question that so whether will be a guarantees extension, whether there any risk that they're going to lose the land, the right to use land upon expiry of the lease term. So I mean, so that is that's a concern for most of foreign investor in Vietnam. I think the government in Vietnam, we are now much different from when from 30 years or 40 years before when we were like under a different system actually. In the past, back in the past, like in the 1990s or early 2000s, most of the investors, when coming to us, they always ask about the risk with nationalizations of their asset, with confiscations of their asset in Vietnam if they invest in Vietnam. But at that time, it is understandable because we are like a new market. But I think Vietnam has been joining the international community, business community. Years now. We are members of most of the treaties, global treaty, the two treaties I mentioned. And actually, we're communists, but we are like market-oriented economies. So for the many years, Vietnam have been trying to ensure for investor that Vietnam is a safe investment environment. When you come to Vietnam, you can be assured that there will be no risk that your asset will be confiscated. You will be treated equally with Vietnamese. And actually, as a matter of fact, foreign investors are even treated much better. I mean, given a lot of priorities compared to Vietnamese. Vietnamese, and there have been a complaint from local developer in Vietnam that why the government of Vietnam, the authority of Vietnam are giving very nice treatment to the foreign investor coming here, like in terms of the way they receive the application, in terms of the way they are willing to meet with foreign investor anytime when there is a request. So I mean, I may be too long, but back to the issue about whether it will be renewable. I don't think the government of Vietnam at the time when the lease term expired, they wouldn't let it go like that. They would like just simply revoke the land or revoke the properties from the either the foreign investor or the owners of foreign owners of properties in Vietnam. I'm sure the government of Vietnam will keep this process smooth, and I'm confident that the government now would do things which are favorable to the foreign investor, because at the end they though you come from other countries, but because you are investing in Vietnam, you help this country to develop. So for a while now, I am overconfident that the expiry of the renewal will be granted at the time when the lease terms or the term expire.
Yes, I must agree on that one. I was in Vietnam in 2003 to 2010, and I just got back. I came back to Vietnam quite recently, early this year, and I must say that within 10 years, the landscape of Saigon, at least in Saigon, as far as I know, I'm not so sure about in Hanoi. I'm pretty sure I saw how fast it grew. It grew over the last 10 years, and I feel that it's quite amazing, because it's in other countries they will just involve per urban city, but this one I believe that it's all like different places in Saigon itself. So I must agree on that one, and I believe that the government has already improved and have more inputs right now compared to early 2000. So Kasato-san, sorry, you have to translate.
Okay.
Sorry.
今、所有権とですね、リース権の話だったんですけれども、リース権に関しては50年ですね、そこから更新ができるというところのお話が あって、で、基本的に更新ができるということなので、所有権ずっとですね、持ち続けるというところとの比較のリスクというのは、あまりないと。あとは、投資をする人の観点からすると、何年間投資するのかというところかと思いますけれども、50年ずっと投資する人っていうのはなかなかいないと思うので、その途中で売却をするというところ。で、それに関してですね、リース権に関しての法的なその整備というものは、これから進んでくると。昔と比べたら相当ですね、良くなっているということをお伝えいただきました。Okay.
Okay.
I just
So I will
summarized the point. Yeah.
Yes, I will just complete this one. Yeah. So I bought property. I put in my money. There are already several ways to pay the developer and all. Now, I need to go back. I need to bring back the money. I do have an answer on that because my bank in Vietnam was a HSBC, and I was able to get my money back, but it's not so much anyway. So for investors, for real investors, I'm a Mickey Mouse. Let's say, or an individual investor. Is there any problem? Would there be any problem right at these days to bring back their money? Yeah. Is the question clear?
I think generally, the answer is if you're paying all of your taxes and all of your expenses that are required under Vietnam law, then you should be able to get the approval to have your funds sent out from Vietnam. So I think the key issue that everyone should be considering as an investor is making sure that you are in strict compliance with your tax obligations in Vietnam in order to get your funds out. I don't think that there's a major issue with getting your funds out, assuming you're in compliance.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah.
That's it.
I would add on to what Paul just said.
Okay,
yes,
Mr. Tan.
Tax is compliance with tax requirement is very important. All the banks in Vietnam are given the obligation to check that, before they accept a remittance overseas, they would want to check that, that is a legitimate payment. So that means that when one day when you want to sell properties in Vietnam and you want to transfer money back to Vietnam, you have to show to the commercial bank that will transact the remittance all the necessary supporting documents, including evidence that tax has been paid, on the gain. Otherwise, the bank would not allow you to remit, the fund outside of Vietnam. And it's also very important that right from the beginning, meaning when you buy the properties, you have to also ensure that you do it right. Meaning that when you pay for the property, you have to transfer the fund via bank transfer, so that you have evidence that you already transferred the fund into Vietnam. If you do it like other informal way, that some people they pay in cash, as what you asked me yesterday, that you bring big bag with that, then you will get stuck at the time when you want to transfer money outside.
Is it still happening though?
I think that's much less these days. Yeah. In official market.
Official market. Oh, because I don't know what I'm talking about.
I can get what it is.
You can get it.
Yes, I can
get. Yes. So, so it's still how much less compared to 10 to 15 years ago?
Actually, the law of Vietnam in this regard is very strict. All the transactions should above 800 US dollar should be the payment for such transactions should be made via bank transfer, instead of cash. Otherwise, the tax authority, they're gonna have an issue with this. They would not realize such payment, and you will have difficulties with proving the payment. So I think unless in the unofficial market, in the official market, what I have seen is all the people are paying our people are paying by bank transfer.
Okay, so it's more on the older generation.
Yeah, I think it's
Well, same as Japan then.
Out of history.
Right.
But it may happen between local and local traders, and when they buy or sometimes they buy land, but not what we are talking about here is properties selling to sold to foreign buyers.
Yes. Kazato-san, would you like to do you understand?
Yeah, I
any
understand.
follow-up question? Any follow-up question on that?
Yes, I have a question about taxes. So, if the owner lost paid tax receipt or documentation, how can we get the proof? So, I mean, the Vietnamese government provides an online tracking system to the owner instead of the receipt or the paper.
Do you understand the question?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. I think it's very good questions. I think what I need to share is that though the government of Vietnam is trying to build up what we call an electronic government, so that electronic government. So we want to make it, systemize all the systems, IT system in Vietnam. With the hope that we have built up a good database, or all the transactions would be systemized. The tax authority is also not an exception to this. But until now, in terms of the database of the tax authority, is still not as good as people expect. So if one day, as a owners, if you happen, unfortunately, you happen to lose the tax receipt, you will probably have to apply to the tax authority to issue a new receipt. Of course, the tax authority, they have data recording that you already payment. But whether this data is publicly available or can be accessed to the public is hard to say. I don't think it's open to the public. So the most vivid, the solution for me is to apply to the tax authority for another receipt, another evidence of payment. And plus, if you make the payment to the tax authority by bank transfer, then you also have the evidence issued by the bank, by your bank, that you make the bank transfer for tax payment. Because all the payment by bank transfer would describe the nature of that payment.
Of the business.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
You understand it?
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. Would you like to translate it now or
Yes.
just later? Okay.
I will translate now. 今ですね、このとても重要なイシューだと思うんですけれども、外貨をですね、ベトナムにこう持ち込んで不動産買いますが、不動産買った後にですね、売った後、日本円を元に戻す、日本の国に戻すと、他の国もそうですけど、その時にすごくポイントになってくるのが、しっかりとしたドキュメントがないとお金を戻せないということをおっしゃっていて、それの一番重要なのが、税金の支払い証明ですね。で、税金の支払い証明に関しては、なくしてしまうとかですね、納税証明、日本だったらもう一回取れたりすると思いますけれども、今なくしてしまったらどうなるかっていうところだったんですけれども、まだですね、オンラインで確認することはできないんだけれども、税務署に行って、納税していることを確認をして、証明を取ることができるということなので、一度払ってですね、なくしてしまっても、それをもう一度取得すれば、海外送金することができるということですが、銀行は必ずその納税証明をですね、求めてくるので、それがないと送金ができないという重要なことをおっしゃっていました。Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right. So for me, that's my question. So it's just like buying and bringing it out. Not unless you have any other question, Kazato-san.
Yes, so far good.
Yeah, so far so good. So anyways, our key takeaway here is don't move without your lawyers, everyone. So just don't go out there and go on vacation and I would like to buy this property and then that's it. So I think it's very good to just have our lawyers. So we are well, okay, we would like to introduce to you our partner lawyers in Vietnam. So as we proceed to Vietnam, we can give you the contacts of Mr. Tang and Paul as well, in case you have any other question. That will be in Japanese. Thank you, Mr. Tang. Thank you, Ms. Paul. So,
Yes.
San, is there any other question from the
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you very much for taking time, Mr. Tang and Mr. Paul.
Yes, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Come on, Yusin. Come on. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much for having
Thank
us.
you.
It's really been a pleasure.
We'll get in touch with you soon.
Thank you very much for
Thank
spending
you.
time.
どうもありがとうございます。
ありがとうございました。
I'm happy to answer
Yeah,
any follow-up questions.
We're
you
not
may
yet
either
done.
send it to our emails, or
Yes.
or
make
if
sure-
you happen to be in town in Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, we'd be happy to meet up and address any other concern that you may have.
Definitely.
Thank you.
I will get back to you, Mr. Tang, about a potential partnership for us as well. Thank you so much. どうもありがとうございます。
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Paul. Good evening. こんばんは。
Thank you.
Thank you.
はい。そうしましたらですね、次回の予告です。次回の予告ですけど、来週の火曜日、またですね、弁護士をお呼びしまして、今度はマレーシアですね。マレーシアの不動産投資に関する法的政策ということで、エリザベスさん、弁護士でいらっしゃいますけども、お呼びして、伺いたいと思います。Thank you for your visit tonight. We will broadcast Investigate Episode 3 next week. We will invite a lawyer from Malaysia as a guest. Ms. Elizabeth Xu will speak about legal framework for property investment in Malaysia. She is also well known for a lawyer about property tech and legal tech. Next episode will be at 8 p.m. in JST, 7 p.m. in Malaysia time, June 23 on Tuesday. Please don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel through the QR code. Thank you so much to visit here again. See you next time and have a good night.
Good
Bye-bye.
night. Bye. Thank you. See you later.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.